Alrighty, welcome back to another exotic rating and kind of a review. We will be going over the PvE casual, PvE comp, kind of like higher difficulty, PvP casual, PvP comp with gambits and also a fun rating. Not to mention if there's some event going on, I will be giving a rating on it, and then overall giving it an average rating, not including the event, on how well the exotic just does in the game. That being said, the next exotic we'll be running is Vigilance Wing with the exotic perk of Harsh Truce. This weapon fires a 5-round burst. When a nearby ally is killed, you gain health regeneration and increased movement speed, with the added perk of Last Stand, which is improved weapon performance and greatly increased recovery when its wielder is the last living member of the fire team. This also does come with the added on bonus of the Catalyst, which, if you have the Catalyst, becomes a full auto trigger, and that makes it so when you hold down the trigger, it will fire those 5-round bursts consistently instead of you pressing down every single time to fire another shot. Now, with the builds running with it, I personally think that you don't really have to run a build. I didn't have a specific build in place. Obviously, there's some build capabilities and like some of my personal choices that I would run in certain activities, but just overall, kind of run what you want to run, kind of run what you like. And then any armor mods I put on just strictly kind of just goes on the pulse theme, and it would be auto reloader, fast reloader, flinch, just stuff you need. Now, that being said, we're going to be going into the first section, which is going to be the event section that we were running, and that is going to be the Haunted Lost sectors, and we'll be giving that an 8 rating. Now, the reasoning behind giving it an 8 is strictly just because red bars, obviously the red bars, they're kind of easy to kill, and then when it comes to those like little like mini yellow bars, not too hard, not too difficult. In a couple bursts you can kill them. Boss damage, it's okay. It's not the best thing you can run. Obviously, it's a primary, but it still does a job pretty well when it comes to the headless ones. And around 1300 damage is pretty good overall. Now, to go more in depth on why I'm giving it an 8 rating is it's really good at DPS at what it does. Really good at ad clear. It's not below average. It's not exceedingly where it becomes a 10 rating, but it does its job and it has a really high mag, meaning that you can lay on some damage for quite a while time. Not to mention the reload is really fast on another pulse rifle and just strictly does pretty well. That being said, the reason why it's getting an 8 and not of a 10 is strictly just because, once again, there's legendaries and other exotics that are 3-round or even a 4-round burst that do almost the same exact thing and has a better perk pool. And again, this is a very team oriented thing, so most of the time your teammates aren't really dying that much, and if they do, you're not really seeing that added perk really shine through at all. And then that is going to lead us to the other section, which is going to be the PvE casual section, and then I'll be giving this a rating of an 8. The reason of giving this an 8 rating is, once again, just strictly because it's outshone kind of in the perk pool and other pulse rifles. Obviously, there's more of an incentive to run it because there is more times where your teammates are going to die, and you are going to want that added health regeneration to go and revive them. This being said, I will also recommend the Void subclass, strictly because whenever you get that added health benefit, you might as well go invisible and go revive your teammate right away, just to give that added boost where you can kind of help your teammates rather than use it for yourself. Now, there are cons, obviously, same concept with the Haunted Lost sectors. You're going to have those red bars, those yellow bars that are really easily taken down by Vigilance Wing. Boss DPS is on the higher side. It's not the greatest. It's not a heavy rocket launcher, whatever you want to run for like majority boss damage, but it is going to be able to be run as a DPS. Now, an added perk that you are able to run a secondary with it, like a shotgun or a fusion rifle. My personal choice was Fellwinter's Lie and the Ikelos shotgun from the Prophecy dungeon. Both really good with taking down those yellow bars if you don't really want to worry about bursting. a couple bursts with Vigilance with them. But obviously, Vigilance does get the job done. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it definitely deserves an 8. This is going to lead us to the PvE higher difficulty, kind of like the comp aspect of this. And I will be giving this, again, a rating of an 8. Just warning you, you will be seeing a lot of the same number here. Just a forewarning. Now, the reasoning behind giving it an 8 as well in this category is it once again does its job really well against red bars, yellow bars, with the added benefit, of course, if you're running a secondary, it is a lot easier to run Vigilance with it. And DPS on the boss side was doing okay. Once again, it's going to have the added health pool involved with it. But once again, I wasn't seeing any lackluster damage involved with it. And of course, you're not using it for DPS all the time, so you will be running a heavy. But if you do find yourself just running Vigilance on DPS, you're not going to be yelled at for not doing any damage. Unless it's on the higher Grandmaster difficulties, which I do not run, by the way, because I am way too low of a light, and I also play this shit by myself. And that's just my rating on that. Now, the perks with Vigilance Wing, I didn't really see any shining potential with them. Of course, if your teammate dies, you are able to pop an invisibility to go and revive them, and you get that added health just in case they're next to some enemies and they do decide to shoot you still, even though you're invisible, of course. And that's the only real upside I could see of it. The added mobility with it, with the last living team member, didn't really shine through because once again you're running invisibility, and at that point you're just gonna go pop invisibility, run and revive your teammate, and that's almost the only thing I can see for, because any other build really doesn't shine through when it comes to those kind of abilities and perks. Now, I'm obviously not shit talking the weapon, but you could just run another legendary or another exotic that also does around the same job. But once again, we're just rating this weapon, and that's why it's getting an 8 and not a 10 or a 9. Now, this leads us to the PvE casual side, where obviously people are going to think this shines through a little more, but I will be giving this, again, another rating of an 8. Now, the reasoning behind giving this an 8, even though I gave it an 8 in the PvE concept, kind of seems like I'm giving it a low rating. But then again, I do run pulses most of the time, and it is my main weapon of choice. So I do kind of know what I'm talking about here. I'm not saying I'm a fucking god, of course, but give or take, I do kind of run these a lot. Now, the reasoning behind giving this an 8 is mostly going to be coming from the 5-round burst and the whole kind of perk pool around that. Now, don't get me wrong, the 5-round burst, making it so it's a 2 burst to the head, on paper and in action, does it really, really well. But the only problem I have with it is the recoil for Vigilance is so off to the right that most of the time it's really, really hard to get that 2 burst to the head, at least when I played it. I'm not saying I never hit it. I'm just saying there's a lot of the times where I hit the first burst shot completely fine, and then the last little part of the burst, it goes up to the right a little bit too much, and then you miss your window for the 2 burst. Now, I know that kind of sounds nitpicky, really, but the time to kill goes from a 2.0 to a 2.8 because you do have to wait for that other 3rd burst to come in, or for you to switch to your other weapon to finally finish the job. And there are just way too many pulse rifles that 2 burst with that aggressive frame, or even the 4 burst, that it just seems a little behind the benchmark of where it needs to be. Now, that being said, of course, it's still a really good pulse rifle because it is able to 2 burst to the head. You do get those health regenerations, especially in that 6v6, and you have teammates dying all the time, and you are able to get that health regeneration quite often, really. But obviously you don't get the added perk of the mobility of being the last person alive, but this is control here. Do we really need you to fucking go faster? No. Now, that section is really truly my only gripes about it. I don't think it's a bad pulse rifle. Honestly, I think it's an above average pulse rifle. That's the reason why I give it an 8. But coming from a person that means no time to explain a lot more, just it falls kind of shortly behind, especially in a team oriented kind of using this pulse rifle. And I'd rather just be using a legendary because there's no real added perk that really shines through on vigilance, or just run a different exotic that can do the same exact thing but just with a different perk. Now that leads us to PvP comp. PvP comp is going to be giving a 9. Weirdly enough, I'm finally giving it a bump up that it deserves. Now, I know you're jumping up and down in your fucking little seat here, you little high horse. I fucking swear to God, if I stutter one more time during this goddamn voiceover bullshit. Now, you are jumping up and down in your high horse. Finally giving Vigilance, in most people's eyes, a fair rating. But honestly, the time to shine with Vigilance is going to be coming in these PvP kind of comp matches where you're able to use the entire perk pool and able to really run a build with it to make it your own. That being said, once again, I am running Void Invisibility just because that's what I'm comfortable with. I run it in comp, I run it in PvE. It's just what I run. But a lot of the times, I feel like I was just using it a lot more efficiently, especially because if I do miss those 2 bursts, I do have a teammate next to me or beside me or looking at a different angle to finish off that person. And a lot of the times, I'm getting the health regen, and it's making me win the battle against my 1v1 if my teammate loses another 1v1. Or if they target shoot the target, my teammate next to me, I'm able to actually finish off the 2v1 that he helped me pretty much get involved with. Now, honestly, it's not a 10. It's really, really close to becoming a 10. I'm not saying that, like, oh my god, it's bad. I wasn't him. I wasn't a god. And I feel like there is wasted potential with the catalyst as well. Becoming the full auto trigger, that just seems like it's a waste. I feel like they should kind of rework Vigilance to become a little better. Not saying it definitely deserves it. It's a very meta weapon. If you want to run it, it runs really well in comp. But it's just so close to perfection that I'm not giving it a 10, but I'll probably, if I was going down to the decimal marks, I would give it a 9.5 to a 9.7. Then, after that whole fucking rant I'm going to be giving Gambit a 9. Now, weirdly enough, I am going to be putting Gambit at this 9 level just because it does really well in the PvE side, and it is able to be used in the PvP side, which with a lot of these primaries has a little bit of issues just because how big the Gambit maps really are, that it's really hard to kind of see the potential with these weapons in invasions and any of those concepts. Now, once again, reiterating, PvE does really well. Red bars shreds through them really fast. Yellow bars, once again, shreds through them pretty quickly. But just the added bonus of able to shut down a opposing guardian coming in for an invasion, or you going into the invasion and wanting just a primary to fall back onto with some added bonus range, makes such a better weapon become great. Now, of course, going into the perks and kind of what else you can run, the perks doesn't really matter in this. Your teammates aren't going to be dying as much, and of course, since the map is so big, even if your teammate does die across the entire map, it's going to be way too far to be getting that added health bonus, and you're not really going to be the last person alive in Gambit, and I don't see that perk coming out as much, but you can run other legendaries or other aggressive frames that have a better perk pool. That being said, I keep bringing up No Time to Explain a lot, but you're able to run something that has the added bonus of pretty much an extra perk that Vigilance doesn't really have, and it just feels like you're running another legendary that can 5 burst, and it's not really, doesn't really feel like an exotic to me. And then that leads us to our pretty much final section where I'll be talking about my opinion. I know, tell me to shut the fuck up now, but I'd be giving it a fun rating of a 9, and The reasoning behind giving it a 9 is just because I had fun. It wasn't really a weapon where I had any anger to it. I didn't have any anger issues. I wasn't over here slamming my fist on my goddamn keyboard saying, "Oh my gosh, why aren't you working?" The switch between the PvE, the PvP concept, and just overall how the perks work, it felt like I was just running another legendary with it, which once again has its flaws. If it feels like you're running a legendary, then does it really need to be an exotic? But it doesn't really matter because you have fun with it. You have the added bonus of those perks, and when they do shine, they really do shine. And it kind of felt nice running a 5 burst rather than a 3 or 4 burst if you do run that one. It was one pulse rifle that has a 4 burst. I'll put it on the screen if I can find it, but it's just one of them. But it just was fun. It's not groundbreaking. Didn't feel like I was like Thor, God of Thunder. Didn't feel like I was Osiris himself running trials over here slaying down these motherfuckers, but it was just fun. It didn't really have any added bonus, didn't really have anything that was bad. Now the average of all those together in this final category is going to be an 8.5. Kind of wrapping this up, I feel like it actually does fit Vigilance really well to give it an 8.5. It's not overall meta, it's not overall too powerful in the categories of PvE, PvP, Gambit, any haunted lost sectors, whatever you want to run it in. But it's honestly really fun to run, especially in comp gameplay and PvP like trials or survival or anything that I'm missing. But the problem occurs when legendaries are outperforming Vigilance or other exotics that I'd rather run. That's when I look at Vigilance and I think of it as kind of wasted potential, especially with such a dumb catalyst that could have been reworked or honestly enhanced to make it so it stands out, especially when I can run full auto trigger on any weapon now. With a lot of these earlier exotics, I feel like Bungie just kind of forgets that they're there, and once in a while looks at them and goes, yeah, I think that's good enough, and they don't really try to make it so it works in the current play style and the current playing of the game. But I'm not a developer here. Who am I to say something? But just, I feel like an 8.5 gives it its justice. I feel like it does it well. I feel like in every single category, it's just there. Now, this is my opinion. You can go against my opinion. You can think that my opinion sucks ass. I really don't care. I'm the one here making the video, and if you want to argue, then you're going to be arguing at a brick wall because I'm not going to listen to you. So, once again, this is the Nice Exotic, and I will see you guys next time I do a video. Should once again be trying to do this a little bit faster, but obviously I have a life, so